Now that East vs West is over, I figured it would be a good idea to make a top 5 arm wrestlers in the world list, as this just makes sense to do after such a major event like East vs West 12. And of course, starting off the list with the #1 guy in the world, it is clearly Levon Saginishvili. I think after this event, there will be no question in anyone's minds. I think that the majority reason for some people questioning whether Levon was still #1 or not was because of his injury. It's kind of crazy to think that the only way someone could be dethroned is by getting injured, but that's just how strong Levon was. And what's even crazier is that even while he was coming off of an injury, he still managed to beat Devin Larratt 4-0. Levon is just way too strong right now, and there is a clear gap between him and anyone else in the world. And of course, the #2 guy is also going to be super obvious. It's Devin Larratt. Devin is the only guy who has managed to crack Levon's wrist back in maybe 7 years or something like that, and he also has defeated pretty much everyone he's gone up against over the last year in the super heavyweight category, except for having a bit of trouble with Gennady Kvikvenya, but Gennady is currently coming off of an injury, and I think Devin probably could beat Gennady if that match were to be run back. So in my mind, Devin is the pretty obvious #2, and this leads us to the #3 guy, which I think is Ermes Gasparini. Now, Ermes Gasparini probably did even better against Levon than Devin did from a certain perspective. Ermes' hand control clearly was not as good as Devin's was, but Ermes probably had a much better chance of actually getting a pin in that match. Ermes seemed to put up a much better fight against Levon's arm, and Devin put up a much better fight against Levon's hand and wrist. Which one of these is more impressive? It's hard to know, but I do think Ermes was probably closer to actually getting a win than Devin was, and the only reason that I would put Ermes below Devin is because Devin defeated Ermes. And this moves us on to #4 on the list. I'm going to say Alex Krdecha. Now this one is a little bit of a wild card, and I'm really not sure about it, because I probably would have put Georgi at #3, but Georgi just lost to Alex. Now the thing is, Georgi was injured during that match. If you guys were not aware of that, he really seriously hurt his leg before the match, and I don't know how much trouble that would have caused him, so it's a little bit hard for me to know how good Alex really is at the moment, but I would tend to think that a leg injury shouldn't make that big of a deal in arm wrestling, so I am going to put Alex just above Georgi at the moment. But this spot for Alex is held pretty loose because Alex still is rather untested upon his comeback to the sport. And of course, the #5 guy is going to be Georgi Tsvetkov. I still think very highly of Georgi. He did extremely well against Devin Larratt, probably better than anyone has done recently against Devin Larratt other than Gennady, although Georgi is going to struggle against flop pressers, and he did just recently lose to Alex, so it's a little bit difficult for me to know exactly where he is, but I think top 5 is probably pretty close. I think one could also make the case that Denis Saplenkov belongs somewhere on this list. Denis has looked extremely impressive, especially in practice polls. It's just that we haven't actually seen him win an official match, except for against John Brzenk. Denis did look very impressive when he lost to Devin Larratt, but he did still lose. And I think that we'll gain a lot more information once we see Ermes pull Denis. I think that stylistically, Ermes should do very well against Denis, but if Denis manages to defeat Ermes, then I'm going to move him way up in the list immediately. So let me know what you guys think about this list, because my list did change a little bit after watching East vs West. And also, let me know if there's people you think belong in the top 5 that I missed.